So if you recognize the title of this video, that's because I have made it before. I'm just redoing it to improve the quality of it. And for some reason, when I first originally uploaded it, it was like the most popular video on my entire channel. I don't really understand why, but either way, I've had both the good fortune, at least in my opinion, of living in relatively bigger cities throughout the US. DC being one of the more notable examples, and Arlington, Virginia is actually what's behind me right now, as well as the misfortune of being forced against my will to live in smaller towns, such as Manhattan, Kansas, when I was stationed at Fort Riley when I was in the Army. But either way, I've noticed at least three sort of notable differences between the two that I want to share with you in this video, so that if you're considering moving from one place to another, then you at least know what to expect. And they are, at a glance, cost of living, population, and things to do. So let's go ahead and take each one of those one at a time. So the cost of living in a bigger city is obviously going to be higher than it is in a smaller town. So that means things like groceries, basic necessities, even taxes are generally going to be higher, real estate values as well. So one bedroom, one bathroom apartment in DC, for example, is going to cost you anywhere around $2,000 a month, whereas something comparable is going to be a lot less in a smaller town. When I was in Manhattan, Kansas, I was renting out a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom townhouse with an attached garage for less than $1,000 a month. But there's a little bit more than meets the eye to that. So for one, in a bigger city, you're likely going to get paid a lot more to do the same job than you would in a smaller town. And not to mention, the reason it costs a little bit more is because there are other benefits that you reap for living in a bigger city, and we'll talk more about those in a second. And also in a smaller town, you're going to probably get paid a little bit less, and real estate values aren't going to appreciate as much because it's not as in demand of an area. So you can buy a house that's very big for a very affordable cost, but then even after you've lived in it for several years and you try to sell it for a profit, you're probably not going to make that much. The population in a bigger city is also obviously going to be greater than it is in a smaller town. So what does that mean? More congestion and more traffic, longer wait times at the checkout counter or at the restaurant, and even more competition for jobs and houses and stuff like that. And in a smaller town, it's the exact opposite. There are more tumbleweeds than there are people. But at the same time, to get around that congestion, most cities have a public transportation infrastructure that small towns lack. You'll have subways like the Metro here in DC, buses, what have you. And also you can live outside the city and commute into it whenever you want and deal with a little bit of less traffic that way. Or you can live in the city itself and not even have a car, because usually things are co-located. You can just walk from your apartment to your office or go the other way to get to the gym or something like that. And also, I like to go out and see people out and about. Signs of life, as I refer to it as. It's much more fun to see people out and about doing stuff. And with more people comes more propensity to establish relationships and network professionally. So I personally prefer the larger population in a bigger city. And finally, there's a much larger variety of places to go and things to do in a bigger city than in a smaller town. So here in DC, there's a large variety of parks, shopping malls, what have you. I can hang out at the monuments in DC, the Smithsonian Museums, Old Town Alexandria, Virginia, or the Waterfront National Harbor, Maryland, etc. But in a smaller town, I remember when I was living in Manhattan, Kansas, there was literally only like one shopping mall, one place to get my car serviced, and so on. And if you're like me, it's going to make you feel like you're living in a fishbowl. But with all that said, as I obviously prefer bigger cities, and I make it work. I work around the congestion, and I just pick the right place to live. I manage my finances well enough so I net the same amount, and I'm okay with paying a little bit extra to reap those benefits we talked about. But that doesn't mean that life in a smaller town is to be discounted entirely, because if you prefer things like a more affordable cost of living and peace and quiet, maybe a sense of community, then life in a smaller town might be for you. But either way, I also have lived in other places. I'm also originally from Seattle, Washington, so I have some insights I can offer on that. So let me know if you have any questions or anything to add, and I hope that helps. I'll see you in the next video.